Long before there were kingdoms or borders, this land already held history. Over 500,000 years ago, early hominids wandered through this region. Between 230,000 and 30,000 years ago, Neanderthals lived, hunted, and left their mark on the Iberian Peninsula. Later came Homo sapiens, and with them, symbols, burials, and art. In the Coa Valley, they left their mark on stone, hands that still reach across time. This land already held memory, long before it had a name. Over time, more complex societies emerged. The Iberians, likely from North Africa, settled in the south and east. The Celts, arriving from northern Europe, invaded the western lands. Their fusion created the Celtiberians, a mixed culture of rituals and resistance. In the far west, the Lusitanians rose, free farmers, shepherds, and warriors. In the north, the Galatae raised stone fortresses called castros, the first outlines of a people carved into the hills. From the sea came the Phoenicians, skilled merchants, fearless sailors. They brought more than goods, writing, wine, and purple dye. The Greeks followed with amphorae, myths, and maritime trade. Then came the Carthaginians, heirs of the Phoenicians, fierce and strategic. 237 BCE, Hamilcar Barca landed in the south. He seized trade routes and built coastal strongholds. A new power had arrived. His name was Hannibal Barca, son of Hamilcar, forged in the shadow of empire. In 219 BCE, he laid siege to Saguntum, a Roman ally. The spark was lit. The Second Punic War had begun. Rome, proud, wounded, swore no enemy would rise unpunished. Then came the march. Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants, fury, and flame. He shattered Roman armies, shook the Republic to its core. Rome could no longer turn away, and so its legions marched west. But not all would kneel. In the hills of Lusitania, a shepherd rose and became a symbol. Viriathus led the resistance with strategy and fury. He defeated Caius Vitellius, cornered Servilianus, and forced a peace treaty. But Rome would not accept a free Lusitania. They bribed his men. He was betrayed, murdered by those he trusted. Yet in death, Viriathus became more than a man. He became the soul of defiance. In 138 BCE, a Roman general ventured deep into the wild northwest. His name was Decimus Junius Brutus, the man they would one day call Callaicus. He led his legions beyond fear across the sacred river Lima, a river the soldiers believed made men forget their past. But Brutus did not forget. Against the Galatae, his legions marched without mercy, and history named him Callaicus. Rome advanced, not with haste, but with weight. Brick by brick, sword by sword. Their banners reached the edge of the known world. But in the west, the land did not bow easily. Here the mountains stood tall, and the spirit of the people taller still. Around 61 BCE, Julius Caesar set foot in the lands of Lusitania. He passed through Olisipo, the Roman city that would one day become Lisbon. There he gained gold, prestige, and the loyalty of soldiers. It was more than a campaign. It was the beginning of a legacy. In 27 BCE, Emperor Augustus created the province of Lusitania. At its heart rose Emerita Augusta, a city we now know as Merida. Rome had arrived not just with power, but with system, with roads, coins, temples, and order carved in stone. The Romans brought more than conquest. They brought law, language, and legacy. They minted coins, with emperors and gods etched in metal. They mapped the land, imposed order, and built towns with precision. Roads like the Via 19 connected cities to outposts, stone threads through the land. They raised aqueducts, temples, bridges, and grand forums. The Latin tongue took root and echoes still in every word we speak. Across the land, Rome planted its soul in stone. In the green north, Brachyra Augusta rose, proud and fortified. To the west, Olisipo looked out over the Atlantic, a city of commerce and command. Further south, Pax Julia, Abora, and Portus Cale pulsed with Roman law and life. But it wasn't only in the great cities. Even in the quietest towns, the Roman way endured. Bathhouses steamed, markets bustled, and forums echoed with debate. The empire was not just seen, it was lived. By the 5th century CE, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed under pressure, corruption, and time. In the power vacuum, the Suebi emerged, a Germanic tribe that carved out a kingdom in Bracara Augusta. They founded a kingdom in Bracara Augusta, the city we now know as Braga. Their rule marked the first stable post-Roman kingdom in Western Europe. Not a shadow of Rome, but something new. Still, their time was brief. The Visigoths followed, stronger, stricter. They brought structure, law, and ambition, and soon absorbed the Suebic lands. The Visigoths brought unity to a fractured peninsula. From centuries of chaos, they forged the region's first Christian monarchy. Their kings were not born to rule. They were chosen by nobles and bishops where faith met politics. They carved law into legacy through the Liber Judiciorum, a legal code that echoed across Iberia for generations. Their capital rose in Toledo, but their influence stretched west, deep into Lusitania. They brought more than a crown. They brought structure, they brought belief, and they planted the seed of a new identity. In 711, Muslim armies crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. They brought new tactics, new beliefs, and a different rule. Within years, the Visigothic kingdom collapsed. In its place, the Muslim-ruled territory of Al-Andalus was established. The West was no longer Roman, no longer Visigothic. It was under Islamic control, and the balance of power had shifted. As Muslim rule settled across the region, the land began to change. Cities like Lisbon, then known as Al-Ushbuna, and Silves, called Selb, took on new roles under Muslim rule. New systems were introduced: irrigation, administration, and scholarship. The language of governance and learning shifted. Arabic became its voice. Centuries later, traces of that era remain in names, in stone, in knowledge. For over 3 centuries, the territory that is now Portugal was a frontier between cultures, faiths, and identities. The mountains echoed with resistance. The valleys grew rich with innovation. This land was not silent, it was becoming something else. It was being forged by every hand that touched it. Even as Muslim rule took root inland, a new threat approached from the sea. Between the 9th and 11th centuries, raiders from the north, Norsemen, the Vikings, stormed the Atlantic coasts. Lisbon was sacked in 844. The north followed. Porto, Braga, and inland fortresses were not spared. By 1016, they had burned castles deep in the interior, reaching towns far from the shore. They never stayed, but they left behind fire, fear, and the echo of sails on the horizon. The Vikings never settled, but they left behind scorched villages and rewritten strategies. Watchtowers were raised, coastal towns were reinforced. Their name entered chronicles, their terror entered memory. Though brief, their raids became part of this land's long and restless story. In 868, a noble warrior named Vimara Peres was sent by King Alfonso III of Asturias to reclaim the land of Portus Cale. There, on the northern frontier, he established a new Christian settlement. This would become the root of a lasting identity. Over time, others would inherit this land, its walls, its people, its promise. Without a crown, without a name, but no longer without a voice. And years later, a foreign knight would arrive to carry the flame forward. Upon this sacred ground walked legions and legends. Julius Caesar marched through its hills. Roman roads carved order into its soil. Carthaginian merchants sailed along its shores. Viking raiders stormed its rivers and castles. Visigoths, Moors, Suebi, and Christian knights all passed through, all claimed, all left their shadow. But the land did not forget. It was shaped by silence, marked by war, and nourished by time. It had no anthem, no crown, no name. But it had memory, it had soul. Before it was ever called Portugal, it was already more than just land.